chat. Yeah.
Yes.
Hi everyone. Welcome to the second session of our Guftgu with Shauna, who's right here from Singapore. I mean, the good thing that we've been able to do with these seminars is maybe one day I was hoping at some point we can do physical conversations and panels, and I've always been planning about it. And then the lockdown happened, and then I realized, hey, wait, we can really do them, and people can actually, come and be a part of these conversations. And that's what led to Guftgu. And Sean, I don't know if you know this or if many people on this chat know it yet, but Guftgu essentially means, we spoke about it, it's like a Urdu Persian word for conversation. And it's been a part of like my family conversations for a really long time, because our granddad always had this thing where he would say that you must always converse. You can disagree on it, you can have different opinions, but that should not be the end of a conversation. And it's something that he used to practice with his kids. So dinner tables was always a Guftgu table in that sense. And I kind of really like that idea, that you always have some conversations going on. They don't have to always be pointed towards one particular agenda, because I think when you leave them open-ended, there's a lot more that can come in. And hopefully this is going to be that. So Sean and I met you first time when I was a student at Angkor, which was, I think, a decade ago or something, like 2010, 2011, ages ago. And then we started teaching with Anjali Kids, which is a kids workshop that we do with the Angkor Festival. And I mean, I know that you took me to eat my first Vietnamese pho, by the way. That's the first time I had the pho, which was really nice. And then we had that lunch ritual of going for it. And of course, during our kids sessions, you were the gymming instructor who would be like, you have your gym session in Cambodia, and we take all our students to photograph him on and off. It was quite fun. But apart from that, when you were a student, you started this work called Shauna, right? Which we're going to discuss today. This is the book. But what I'm going to do maybe is that I'm going to take you through, the PDF of the book, so that you guys can actually get a sense of what the work is like, and then we can start on talking about Shauna and remember it for a bit. Yeah. So just give me a second. What I'm going to do is I am going to just share my screen, and if you'd like to, maybe we can run a few pages and start talking about it as we do that. Can you see the?
Yes, I can see.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to just go through the pages.
Okay. So
yeah.
So let me just talk about how this work began. So I started the work in 2007, and I ended the work in 2009. So in 2007, the reason why I began the work was because I was selected to take part in the Angkor Photo Festival. So that's like 13 years ago. And at that time, I had just started photography. In fact, I was very, very new to photography. I was, at that time, I was actually mainly working as an assistant in a studio for a bunch of photographers. At the same time, I had my own practice where I was just taking some pictures here and there. And when I went to the Angkor Photo Festival to take part in this workshop, when I arrived there, I realized that most of the photographers are actually documentary photographers with a very journalistic approach. And I also realized that they were quite seasoned, First of all, my roommate in Angkor Photo Festival in 2007 is Saurabh Hura, whom I think most of you guys will know.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And then I remember the first night when I was there in the room, he showed me some of his pictures. And at the time, he was still doing very um, journalistic documentary black and white pictures.
Mhm.
You know, and then when I saw that, I was very impressed, and I thought to myself, what the fuck am I doing here? Like,
What
what?
am I doing here?
Yeah. And then shortly after meeting Saurabh, we went to get some food, and then we met this other photographer, Munem Wasif from Bangladesh, who is a very famous teacher now in photo school in Bangladesh, and
Yeah, yeah.
has very, very nice documentary work. And and I didn't have any work like that, and I've never done that kind of work.
Right.
So I was of course I didn't know what I was doing there. I was very scared. So when the workshop began, how it works is that you have about 7 days, and by the end you have to produce a body of work. So you got to find some stories in Siem Reap in Cambodia to photograph, right? And for many days I didn't know what to do, and finally I decided that I'm not going to be able to do traditional documentary work.
Right.
And so I started, and I also found that I have a lot of problems photographing people that I do not know, or trying to make some kind of contact, or to get some kind of access to photograph people
Right.
that I didn't know. And what I started to do was that I just started to dress up as different characters that I saw in Siem Reap.
Okay.
So Shauna was not the first character that I played.
Mhm.
I was pretending to be a tuk-tuk driver. I rented a tuk-tuk, and we go to different locations. I was change clothes with him, and then I photographed myself as a tuk-tuk driver. So I tried that. And then also I went to a construction site in Siem Reap, and I tried to dress up as the construction workers. Sometimes when I think back about those days now, I'm also quite shocked that I just randomly showed up at a construction site and changed clothes with a construction worker and then took pictures of myself. But that was what I did. Eventually, I also dressed up as a lady boy. So what happened is that back then we live the hostels the hostel where we live is right next to Pub Street, and at night there are many lady boys in the area, and so I thought maybe I could try this character as well. So I bought a wig off some shop selling clothes. I bought the wig off a mannequin,
Right.
you know, and then I approached one of the lady boys I saw, and they helped me with my makeup.
Okay.
And then I borrowed clothes from like the female participants, and then I dressed up. And at first I thought to myself, I just take some pictures of myself in my room, and then that will be all. But I after the makeup and also dressing up, and that first night when I saw myself in the mirror, I was very shocked that I looked very different. And I decided that I can't not go out, I can't just do this for one night in my room.
Right.
I have to, I felt a need to let this character that I've created have a life. I felt this real need and desire for her to come alive.
Right. I mean,
We started, the work started like this.
the work started like that. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you talk about all these other personalities in some ways that you were trying to perform or enact, and yet Shauna seems to be the one character out of those personalities that that stayed on with you, not just for the duration of like that particular photographic experiment, you know, like the others are performative to a certain degree because you kind of do the performance of taking up that role, you get your photograph, and then you kind of move on from that. But there's something about Shauna, it seems, that you did not move out, not just after the first photograph, but even after the workshop, you know, because you Shauna was alive for almost like 3 years, it seems, right? And I mean, I have to say this, Shauna is stunning. Like, she's really beautiful. And I think we've spoken about that where I've been like, man, I'm just so jealous of her. She's looking stunning. But apart from the physical characteristics that you gave her, you know, I'm just curious to know, like, what is Shauna like? Like, you know, what is it like being Shauna in that sense?
I mean, the first night was the most memorable because I genuinely felt like I was not myself. I mean, I genuinely felt like I was a different person. So whatever you do is the first time you're doing it. It feels, I mean, you feel different. When you look at yourself, you do not see yourself. At the same time, people around you treat you differently because you look so different. And it came very naturally that I behave different as well, and I move different as well. The way that I manifest my physicality is different also. And I mean, now when I think back about it, what is most interesting is how naturally it came. There was no plan to be a certain way or to behave a certain way. There's no strategizing in any way. It's just happened like this. It
So
feels
there's no like references that you, I mean, because you know the body language that you have in these images, it's very strong, and it's a very feminine, strong body language. You know, like even whether it's just, even if like it's just the eyes or, you know, anything of that sort. So there was like no referential point for this, or were you I mean,
I
it
wasn't.
personality, you know.
I didn't have it. I mean, that first night was very powerful, and I think there's something about, I don't know what it will be like for other people, but for me, it is a very special moment because you suddenly become aware that there is another presence inside of you that previously you are not aware. So, and this presence has come about all of a sudden in Siem Reap during this workshop.
Triggered by completely different situations where you're, you know, like.
So it's also very shocking to me that such a thing would happen. And also you have to realize that at the time I was very young and very new
How
to
old were you then? Like you were.
13 years ago, so I was 22 years old.
Oh, okay, right.
So I was not, I mean, I'm 22 years old. I just started photography. I don't really know what I was doing.
Right.
So I was also very surprised. But seeing that there was this presence and how strong it is and how it made me feel so different, then I decided that the work has to continue. So I carried on making the work in Singapore and in Siem Reap.
And so, when you were in Singapore, like what were the kind of situations or scenarios in which you would become Shauna?
Yeah. So this work, I mean, is very experimental. So there are some scenes which are staged. So those scenes that are staged, sometimes I use lights. You know, I will compose the shot, and some scenes are from Siem Reap when I go out and I can't be taking the pictures. So someone is taking the pictures for me. And
an entourage following you and like hiding in different corners to take this? I mean, how?
no, of course, when during the workshop, there were a lot of photographers. They know doing this, so they follow me and they take pictures. Later on, when I pursued the work further, then I brought along a photographer. Actually, he's not a photographer, he's just my friend. And I gave him my camera and I set all the settings for him. And then I just asked him to just pretend to be a tourist and take some pictures. So there wasn't really a fixed way of working. And to be honest, many times I was also very uncertain about the way to photograph this, the way to work, the method of working is I'm very uncertain myself. Very young, very new to photography. I was more interested in the performance, especially going out to these different places. Actually, nothing spectacular happened.
Apart from Shauna existing.
Yes, that nothing, in fact, absolutely nothing spectacular happened except that this Shauna went to a few bars, had a few drinks, met some people, that's all. So some of the scenes in the book that look like something has happened, they are staged.
So
they are produced, yes.
So, I mean, of course, to a certain degree, I guess everything over there in the images is staged because, we're talking about a performance to a large degree. And yet in some ways, the images are highly cinematic, like, the kind of colors that are being used and the sense of movement and the sense of excitement that comes in because of this movement that exists over there. In some cases, like let's say during the workshop time, of course, you had your friends who were photographers follow you around. So there's a certain photographic aesthetic that maybe comes through. But what happens when you kind of give it to this friend of yours in Singapore who's not a photographer, but who's actually just, hanging out with you? And so did you give directions? Did you want a particular composition or,
No, not really. And the reason is because it's too, I give some direction before, but not really because it's very destructive I just accept that I just accept that you have no control over the pictures that he's going to make because he also he's not a photographer and it's not his camera, he doesn't have a camera, he doesn't know how to use a camera.
Right. He's literally just point and shoot.
Yeah. He doesn't know. So you have to forget that he's there. And you have to let go of the control. So in the end, you have, when I look through the pictures that he has taken, then I have to see what I can use or what I cannot use.
So did you just tell them to like shoot like mad so you just have all kinds of options and then decide later what Shauna?
Yeah. Basically, that's about it. I just ask him to shoot and then we decide later. And then this happened over, a few sessions throughout those 2 years. And then eventually when I look at it, and then I also did some stage scenes so I try to find a way to bring them together. By the time I made the book, it was already many years after.
Yeah, the book came much later, no?
Much later, because I didn't know about making books. I didn't even know that you can make a book at that time.
Like, I'm just going to be Shauna right now, guys.
Yeah. Because at that time, self-publishing is not really a thing.
Yeah.
So I just made those pictures and then I didn't know what to do with the pictures.
Right.
So after many years, I started to see, self-publishing is a thing. And I started to think, okay, now maybe the final form for Shauna is a book. Then I started to look through these archives of stage images as well as images that were taken on the fly, snapshots.
Right.
And then I try to form something of a narrative in a book form.
And I'm curious to know because by that time you also had other work that was, that had been made, and you were working with your family, and you were also doing other commercial work by the time the book kind of came into being.
Yes.
For you, this was the first book that you were looking at making as well, in some way.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's a way to say goodbye to the work and to this presence. It's a way to say farewell.
But was that a way to also say goodbye to Shauna in some ways, or
Is yes, of course, yeah, of course. That there is that element as well, and also to the person that I was, that is able and willing to do this thing.
Right.
Sometimes when I think back about it now, I cannot imagine myself doing this kind of work now. No way. Yeah, no way. I can't. I have no idea why I was able to do it at that time.
It's interesting. You sent me that write up about the book, and you said in somewhere that you say, I suppose we're all tied to our own perceptions. And but I'm curious to know why you feel like you would not go outside of yourself. Of course, I'm not saying of course, but to a certain degree, that transformation from Sean to Shauna. What did that mean for you personally, outside of being Shauna, outside of physically adopting another identity? Was there anything else to kind of look at in terms of even gender fluidity, or just maybe questions that you might have had?
This is a very interesting question, and I want to be very honest with you.
Go for it.
Yes. Initially, when I was making this work, back then, those years, many years ago, I felt that there was some pressure. I don't know where this pressure come from. Maybe it's from myself or from my own perception of how photography should be.
Right.
I felt that I need to have a point about this work.
Right.
Meaning to say that the write-up that you saw, this write-up that I did, is quite, I would say that when I read it now, I would say that it is quite honest and it's quite simple. In the book, the write-up is even shorter.
Yeah, there is like almost zero write-up,
Yes, it tells you what I did and what happened. And the reason is because, so the write-up that I sent you, that was even before, there's some years before the book, yeah. So what I want to say is that when I first started this work at that time, there were some opportunities to show the work. I said a lot of shit that I did not mean.
Okay.
And the reason is because I felt some pressure to make a point or to say something, to make some kind of social commentary.
Right.
As a young photographer, that's how I felt at the time,
Right.
But I knew that it's not true. The fact is that I have no point to make. There is no social commentary whatsoever. And, for a long time, I was not the kind of person who was comfortable with that. But now I am 100% comfortable with it. And the honest truth is that there is no point to this. There is no point to this. I'm not trying to say anything. And I'm not trying to, I am a man trying to be a woman, like dressing up to be a woman. But I don't think of Shauna in this way. I don't, and maybe the lady boys that I come across don't think of themselves in this way also. I don't know, I could be wrong. And I didn't think of Shauna as me trying to be a woman,
Right. Okay.
Now when I think about Shauna, I just think of her as a presence. And I don't try to say what she is. So the work is actually, when I think about the work now, is actually a field work.
It's a failed
And
work, do you
it's a
think?
field, yeah.
Okay.
So I like the work a lot, but I think of it as a field work. And if you go to my website, I have
Not
removed the web.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I was like, why is this not here?
But during this COVID time, I have some thoughts about putting it back on there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think of this as a field work because this work is, to me, is a performance, right?
Right.
You are trying to act, and you're trying to become, not beyond just acting, you're trying to become, you know. But for me, the only way for the work to progress is that it must come to a point where the performance is not distinguishable from your life.
Okay.
So in order for the work to progress, you must become more and more, you must take more and more risks. You must really go and become that person in as much as you can. And you have to change your body, you know, you have to take some kind of hormones, or you
Right.
we have to think of this as,
Take the plunge in that sense.
yes, yeah. So for me, my logic at that time is that you have to think of this as a kind of possession. This presence is trying to take over your life. It's trying to take over you. That is why the work is strong in the beginning, because you see the presence is coming to take over your life. You see a person slowly becoming somebody else. In the work, you see the dressing up process, you see the
Yeah.
making up process, you see the shedding of the costume, you
Yeah.
see the shedding of the makeup, you see Sean coming out, and you see him becoming Shauna. So for me, the work, in order to go on, if you want to go on, you must take more risks. You must come to some point where you make a change that you cannot reverse anymore. You have to become a woman at some point.
Right. Right.
Do you understand the logic of this?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like how you think about like belief or faith or love.
Yes.
To
Yeah.
to become one with that idea and to become one with that identity,
Yes.
you've got to lose yourself. You've just got to give in.
Yeah. Yes.
And I mean, at least I think that's where you would.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I believe. So, but that's very problematic. There's other work that I want to do. You know, there's other things that I there's other things that I want to do with my life. I'm not going to just do this and then just totally become a woman and then
You were
that's
not.
all.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
were not.
Yeah.
You're not ready to completely give in to that one absolute identity that you would have to then
Yeah,
become.
of course. What would my parents think, you know?
Yeah.
And isn't it crazy to do this for your
But
work?
I mean, okay, I get that thing. But I mean, if you are convinced, then it's, you don't really think about what one would think or the other. And the fact that you're also maybe questioning it in the dynamics. I mean, was that a question that was answered more in the dynamics of a larger group of people who are around you, or was that
No, it's also me. It's that,
okay? Right, right,
I mean, it's like, you know, people who do this, they are born feeling like they should have been a woman, you know. That's why they, they, they take on the risks medically and physically, biologically,
right.
to go for a change, because that's how they feel. That's who they are.
Yeah,
They don't think I am, they don't think I'm changing my sex. They think I am becoming who I am all along.
right.
Okay. That's not the case for me. The case for me is I made a work, and I could see how this work cannot end well unless you go to the extreme. If you do not, it becomes just an exercise.
Right.
So when I realized this, then I decided I'm not gonna carry on. What is going to change? there are some lines that I can't cross, that I'm not willing to cross. So I decided to stop the work. So when I stopped the work, I actually stopped the work right after I had a very amazing exhibition in the Arles Photo Festival in France.
Yeah.
So when I went to Arles Photo Festival, I was also quite young, you know, in my early 20s. And I felt like, wow, I'm amazing.
I have arrived.
Yeah, like what the fuck? Wow. And then when I went back home to Singapore, I had no one to tell that I went to this amazing exhibition, and I'm
What's
like,
that?
because I know nobody knew me. I was very young back. Yeah, and like I was like, whoa, shit. And the thing is, I didn't even know that art was very important until I went there. I was like,
You're
whoa,
like, I
shit.
went to
Yeah,
France. Like, this is it.
yeah, like they paid for my air ticket, you know. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
They paid for, like, yeah, and then they invite you to show openings. Like I saw Nan Godin when I landed in Arles. The first person I saw was Nan Godin. I was like, what the fuck? That Nan Godin?
What am I doing here?
Yeah, what am I doing here? And then she turned around, she talked to her friend, and I looked at her friend is JR, you know, the street
Oh,
artist JR. I was like, oh shit, damn. And that's just how I felt, you know.
right.
So, but strangely after that, I stopped the work totally because I cannot go on. I cannot go on. For me to go on after such a great experience in art, you have to make a very big step. You can't just play this game of dressing up and then not dressing up. You have to go on to the next step. You have to see what if you made some changes to your body that you cannot reverse so easily. What if you slept with someone, you know, as Shauna, what would that be like? Fucking scared, man, when I thought about these things.
You
I
were
was
like,
like,
this is it. I'm out now.
yeah, they're not gonna happen, man, you know.
I mean, you do talk about it in the book to a certain degree, but you also say that there were these scenarios and these situations where, because you kind of were with this, I mean, part of like this gang of lady boys, let's just say. And so there would be people who'd come and then you'd get picked up, but
I mean, they proposition you, and then of course
so
I'm
you can just say,
I can just say no, or the person who's with me taking pictures, he will say, oh no, he's not doing this for real.
right.
And that's
And then
sometimes,
you
yeah, and in those moments you realize, what the fuck am I doing? Like, what is this? What is this? What is this? What am I doing?
right.
Yeah. So and then you're also very young at that time, so it's confusing. It's confusing.
No, and that's why I guess you say that earlier you felt like there was this great weight of like representing a social idea, but today you are like, no, that's all I was doing. I was dressing up as this character that I created, and you know, and explored like a little part of what it meant to be in that space.
Yes,
And then,
it is a personal exploration, right? That's all it is. And I can speak for no one but myself. Yeah.
right.
So,
I mean, although we're taking questions, maybe in another 10, 15 minutes, if people can put it in, but there's one that I feel like there's Vanmai who's actually asking, did you ever feel Shauna's presence even outside of the costume?
yeah, of course, yes. And when I was very young,
And
maybe
not today so much.
maybe less than 10 years old, there are times I felt this. So maybe it's there all along, but photography gave me a way to manifest this thing for a short while. Okay, and that's all. So the whole thing about the lady boys that I met, it's just that I was in that space, and we were in Siem Reap. I was in that space when it first began. So those are the places that I bring the character to, but we cannot be more different, and it's very rude to pretend like I know anything about what it's like for them.
And from there, you've kind of made a complete reversal when you went from being Shauna to Sean, right? Because
Yes, yeah.
like,
So yeah. So after this work, okay, I do this work, finish. I didn't know what I was gonna do. Then I start to photograph my family. So that family work is something that I can do on and on and on, and I will not feel I need to stop. You get what I mean?
yep.
I can go deeply into it and lose myself in it, and it's not that complicated,
Right.
you know.
But it can be also. I mean,
Yeah,
the
but
reason why you started that family work was also to kind of think about the relationship dynamics and the
yes.
intimacy dynamics that that existed.
Yeah, but that's my real life.
Yeah.
That's my real life. With Shauna, I mean, you are constantly trying to make things up. You're trying to, and it's very complicated when you think about how you want to advance in the work. But for me, going to the family work, I feel uh, I feel more comfortable. I feel that I can lose myself in this work for years and years and years and years. I can lose myself, but with the Shauna work, I feel that I cannot lose myself years and years and years. It's not going to happen. One day she'll start to look like shit. It's not going to happen.
Why would you make her look like shit, man?
Yeah, because time will make that happen.
Will make that happen. There will be a dishonesty with who you are and who you are going to perform to be.
Yeah, and also you won't look like this all the time.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work to look like this, even in the pictures.
And the costumes and the style.
Yeah, everything. Everything.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other things that I kind of wanted to talk about is what is life like without Shauna out there? To a certain degree, even when you were back in Singapore and you had phases or moments when you would be Shauna, you kind of be two people coexisting at the same time in some ways. And then, are there situations, are there scenarios, are there moments where you actually kind of find yourself in the middle of something and are like, wait, maybe Shauna would be doing, as a separate entity, but how she might respond or react or exist maybe today?
Not in very concrete terms. Not in very concrete terms, but of course there have been times when you remember this person, or you remember. I mean, the way that the work is that you imagine that there's this character that you are playing. You imagine that this character has a life. You are trying to see how her story goes. I would imagine if you are a writer and you're writing about a character, I think even these people, they will think about them like real persons, So it's the same for me.
So many times, right? I mean, you have books about places that suddenly everyone believes exists, and then you'll you find people going on these journeys trying to find this mysterious land in that sense.
So this is a very interesting. It's an interesting way of working because you are thinking about this person like she's a real person. So of course, even after not doing the work, there are times when I think about it, when I miss this moment or when I miss those moments. But it's not in a concrete way. Yeah, it cannot be. It cannot be.
And because we're going to kind of wrap up very quickly, I wanted to talk about one specific aspect of the book in particular, which was the sequencing and the editing that you did in the book. Now, again, you mentioned because this is a collection of images that are staged, and because of that, very well thought through and conceptualized, and like going through the hands of so many other people who just had the camera in their hands. So there's a lot of different aesthetics, a lot of different sensibilities, perspectives that kind of came into probably this one large folder with, you know, so many images in them. How do you begin to sift through that to bring in this semblance of consistency, and how then do you begin editing and sequencing them to make this book?
I work with an editor.
Okay.
His name is Upin. So he's someone that I know and trust. So I work with him for the book. I mean, there are some of the. I mean, I can talk about it quite briefly. Like, there are some very cinematic shots, and those shots I love them. They look like something out of a movie. I love this kind of aesthetic, but we also included some snapshots. They look very amateurish, and I feel that they lend some kind of realism to the book. Okay, we also included some shots that are kind of like research shots. You know, there are some shots of other ladyboys.
Like a recce round of things,
Yes, so those people, those shots, those people, those ladyboys that appear, it's just my way of remembering that time. Just to remember that I met this person in this place, in this fucking weird place. Like, you know, there was this club, right? In Siem Reap, in some like weird alley.
Linger.
No, this is called I can't remember the name even, but it's in a place that is very deserted, and when you go there, the road is very dark, and then you see neon lights coming from this one spot, and inside is a ladyboy club, and they all have numbers. Every single time that I have been there, there is no one there except these girls, you know. There's no customer. So it's like, so it's very weird, right? Like, how come there's no one there? But all the girls are there and they have these numbers. Then when you go in, if you go in as a guy, they just very sheepishly walk onto the stage and dance. It's a very weird scene.
That's quite absurd also.
Like, who is paying all these people? There is no one here. It's like,
maybe they have specific timings when you were in the off-season time or something.
Yeah, I don't know. But I took some pictures of the girls. Then I included some of these pictures in the book as well, because it's very dark. It's very blurry. The shots are very blurry. They have a certain mood to them. You know, this place was open for a short while and then it's closed. There's no more this place.
I was going to ask you if you've gone back to this place, like, because, of course, you've been going back to Angkor for a while. So
and the place is gone. Most of these places are not there anymore. I think none of the places are there.
I mean, I've heard it's become a lot more cleaner than what it used to be. Like, you go in Pasif and Zorapur, it's a lot more.
Yeah, so it's not.
They track down on the red districts. And okay, so then that helps us with the sequencing bit. There's just two more questions that maybe I'll put in first. Someone's asking, could you talk about one of your works that you feel has changed you irreversibly?
I think that there isn't this. I think that photography cannot change you in very, very big ways. Right? It can change you and your thinking in some small ways. I think that the family work does change. It does change the way that I think about photography, that the way that I think about the medium, the way that I think about time, and maybe these are just some small changes that I wouldn't appreciate certain things so much if not for the medium of photography, because actually, to me, photography is a very mystical thing. It's a, it's a very mystical medium. So you are constantly, you know, it has this very strange relationship with time, and you are constantly faced with the possibility of loss. That's what photographs teach you, and photographs also kind of, they are a constant reminder that your time is here is very brief, you know. And so these kind of things, I wouldn't have appreciated them if I was not a photographer. Right? And maybe I'm rambling, but you know, when you think about this Shauna work, and you think about how you are trying to make a character, you're trying to make a story, and you and then some days, many years after the shoot is done, there are some moments when you think about her as if she's real. It's so crazy. She's not real. It's you. Okay, that's you in a dress.
But in some ways, she is, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but that's the strange.
like,
So
she
why?
existed, right?
So that is the strange thing, right? Like, why is it that you feel as if she's real? So
Because you see her, like,
yeah. So what is the reason that human beings do this? I mean, when if we take a step back and look at this in a much more macro level, why do human beings make stories and then believe them? So
I mean,
for me, I don't know what other people think, but for me, this is very mystical. It makes me feel that, is it possible that your life is also a story that somebody is telling?
I
It
mean,
does make me feel this way.
there are beliefs that say even what we see around us, like, you know, you seeing me
Yeah.
and talking to me is a construction of our imagination, or that we are coexisting in parallel worlds, or, you know, people have experiences of witnessing themselves in different lifetimes, you know.
Yeah. So
And these are beliefs, like these are things that they think, they don't think, they're convinced that, you know, that exist parallel to our reality in some way.
so the stories that we tell ourselves, and the stories that we tell ourselves, the stories we tell, it makes us. It's a very unique thing, you know. It makes us human. It makes us human. It doesn't exist in any other species, I think. So it it opens up my mind to. It's hard to put it in words, but it opens up a space in my mind where I can get a sense that maybe there is something else. Maybe there's something going on, you know. Maybe there's something going on. Maybe this reality is
Exists.
not what I think it is. Yes.
You think it exists?
Yeah.
No, I mean, we never know. Maybe in an alternate world, we are sitting face to face, actually, rather than this, and talking about a lot more. Cook us.
I probably did not answer the question, but
No, I think you. I think. I mean, I think it's. There's one more, which is a bit of a departure from the conversation we're having right now. Uh, but Pranami is actually, she wants to know, how do you go about your shoots? Do you have a crew to help you? Did you have a crew to help you while you were performing? Or did you have a specific plan on which public spaces you'd photograph yourself while you were building the character? I think if you, I mean, talk about it in terms of Shauna, but I think it might also be nice to discuss the family work within this dynamic, just a little peek into a different work that you're also doing. So it will kind of.
So there's no crew. I mean, the Shauna work, there's one other photographer, and then actually the public spaces. I mean, in Singapore, I only went out once. A lot of the shoots were done in indoor spaces in Singapore, but outdoor spaces, most of them were done in Siem Reap, and there isn't really a particular plan on what kind of public space. Just walk around and shoot at night. So there wasn't really a specific plan, and it's not possible to do this kind of work with a big crew also, you know.
Right.
Just one guy photographing you. Then for my family work, it's really just me at home. Almost every photograph in the family work is shot in my home. It's just me, and sometimes daylight, sometimes I set up a light. It's very simple.
Actually, I saw this video that I think Kevin took of you years ago, which has it's kind of got this sense of you how you converted maybe one of the rooms in your parents' place into a studio, and it was really interesting to see how you created this space, and then you'd have your parents kind of walk in and your sisters there, and I think it showed a very small snippet of shooting
yes,
at that time, and
yes. That's
that was
the kind of work that I like to do. Very insular. You are creating. I like the kind of work where you are involved in making a small world. You are creating a small world. Yeah, like playing in a doll. Yeah, like making a dollhouse. You know, you're making a small universe.
even the work that I don't know if it's done or if you're still continuing, but the one which was more sculptural.
Yes.
Try and see. Can I put an image from that maybe over here on the screen so people have an idea of what we're talking about? And so, in scenarios like this, of course, there is a very, very large degree of maybe planning or setting up a scene, and kind of pre-deciding maybe to a certain degree. You want to talk about how you think of these?
Which one?
The one that was with fingers and like these sculptural kind of.
Oh,
I can't find it
like
online.
body parts. Yeah.
Can I? Maybe if you can, do you know how to share your screen? If we can see one of
Yes.
the
Yeah.
images, then that would be really nice.
Okay. Let me share with you here. Okay, hang on. Okay, so some pictures.
Yes.
Pictures like this.
Yeah.
Pictures like this. These, they are kind of surreal. Yeah.
I actually really love that image also.
I mean, you think about it is something that looks like it's from a dream that doesn't feel like it's from real life. These are some. I like to sometimes make some pictures like this and just put them inside the series.
Right.
It's very magical. I don't know what I'm thinking of. But I can show you some other pictures that are of this nature.
No. Similar to the ones that of the fingers that were coming out of the mountain. You made.
Yeah.
There was like a series that you'd done which was more clay based.
Yes,
It was just light and clay. I don't think it's on your website. It was
yeah. I think I removed some of them. But
why?
there are because there's so many. Sometimes I do not know what to include and what to exclude. I can show you. There are some images like this.
Yeah.
You know, their bodies.
What do you dream about usually? Like, do you remember your dreams very vividly, or when you wake up?
No, but I
I was just curious to know.
This is the kind of work that I like to do. It's just a feeling, it's just a presence. It's something strange, but at the same time, maybe it's a bit beautiful and it looks a bit dangerous. And maybe it's a bit scary.
There's always like this little tension that exists, like everything's really peaceful, but it could turn the other way around like any minute.
Yeah.
It's like this, you're sitting and waiting, like, is it going to remain this calm, or is there something else that,
That's what I like. That's what I like. it's like.
Okay, sorry, we have two more questions, and I think after that we might need to also stop ending the call. But Sheetal wanted to know: do you think Shauna only came to exist because of the camera or because of photography?
Yeah, it's photography is what gives form to this presence, you know. Of course, I mean, when I was young, as a young person, I mean, I think maybe less than 10 years old, I also have some fantasies about being a woman. I think it's quite common.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we're young, we all it's not such a fixed thing.
Yeah. But the thing is, I think most people maybe they don't remember, but I still remember. I have these thoughts.
Right.
And perhaps, I mean, if I was not a photographer, then you just grow out of it, you know. But because you are a photographer or you have some medium that allows you to be poetic, it allows you to create, it gives some form to these things that most people will forget, most people will not think about when they grow up and enter society and become essential workers. But if you have a medium like, let's say, writing or painting or dance, to me, what all this medium does is gives you some form. It gives form to those parts of human experience that sometimes we don't have words for, or sometimes we forget, or sometimes society wants us to forget.
I mean, I think it gives you this. I mean, it just gives you time to be with yourself, you know. And so much of who we end up being can always have this pressure of who we're expected to be. But if you are involved in a life where what you make and what you do is a result of your conversations with yourself, I think you can be more honest in that sense, maybe, you know, about who you are, and not feel as apologetic about feeling the way you do about yourself. You know? That's a privilege that we do have. One last question. Performance seems to be a thread in your work, maybe towards the end of make believe, or rather to reflect on something unknown. Can you maybe talk about how the images you make inform or shape the larger structure of the work or the future images to come?
Huh? Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to say this again. I mean, essentially what he's or she is saying is that performance is a big thread in your work, and you know, maybe towards the end of make believe or reflection of something that's unknown to us. And so, can you talk about how the images that you make affect the images that you're going to make later in life, or a different project, or future images under the same project?
I think that the work will kind of tell you what to do. When we are making, at least for me, when I'm making the work, you are like a person that is groping around in the dark. You don't really know how it will be, because I mean, sometimes you are working on something for many years and you have no idea where it's going to go, what it's going to do. Is it going to become a book or not? So in the past, right, as a younger photographer, you have some kind of end goal in mind. It's very normal. You say to yourself, I want to make a book. And so you start with this form in your mind. It's a book, you know, and it's going to have this kind of font and this number of images.
This is the size it's going to
be. This is the size that it's going to be. So from that point on, all the images and the effort that you put into it is you already have the form in your mind. But when it comes to something like, say, the family work, I have no idea in the end what's going to be. If it becomes a book, of course I'll be happy, but I'm like a person that's groping around in the dark. I don't really know what is going to happen. And you have to just keep on making the work, and then the work eventually will reveal to you what are the images that the images will lead to another. They will just kind of, you'll just be kind of like, you just have to believe that you'll be guided somehow in this process. Yeah, that's what I think.
It's so, I'm so glad to hear this, and it's so true in some ways, because I think in some way when we're photographing anything, whether it's a landscape or a person or something conceptual, there is a part of us that's very deeply embedded in that image, right? Which is a much more maybe honest conversation with what we're seeing or feeling that's creative. And if I feel like if one can just kind of let that be and then allow that to talk back and say what these images have planned for us, then you kind of come up with something that's a lot more organic and a lot more
Yeah, yeah. So
real
this
to
is
who you are.
this is this is what happens when you become part of a community. Say in this case, photography is what happens when you've had some shows. It's what
Yeah.
happens when you maybe had a book, and it's what happens when people start to ask you to talk to people. You,
Yeah.
you, you know what happens is that you start to think that you kind of know what you're doing, and that's very dangerous.
We never do really.
Yeah, but because what I'm trying to say is like, when somebody first start to make pictures, they are not thinking about making a book.
Yeah.
They're thinking about making the picture. And then when they are done making the picture, they start to think, let's make another one. You know? And this process is very beautiful. It's very simple. Oh, I made one photograph. I like it. Let's make another one. And then let's make another one. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But at some point in my own life, I come to this place where I'm like, I want to be somebody. I want to be a bookmaker. You start to create some identity for yourself,
Right.
and it's a constant effort to say to myself, just stop thinking about all this shit. Like,
Just make your image.
yeah, let's just make one. Let's just take it one photograph at a time, and then we see what happens eventually. Maybe nothing happens, and that's okay. By the time you realize nothing happened, you have made 1,000 photographs.
Right.
So
You go on making thousands of photographs.
yeah, you just go on, and then something will happen, but don't decide so fast.
I feel just in that act of making that one image and having that conversation with yourself, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, that's already something that's happened to you.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't think there's this whole thing of nothing happens. It's are you willing to just sit and acknowledge what has just happened?
Yes, and just one last thing about. I guess what we are talking about books, right? In general, so it's become very popular these days to make photo books, right? And I think that's a good thing. There's suddenly a lot of self-published books, a lot of books. But let us think for a moment about this form, a book form. A book form is very final, It's very final. If you make a slideshow, you can change the slideshow, okay? You make an exhibition, you can change the exhibition. When the exhibition goes to another space, you can change. The space change, the way that you show your work change, the size can change. A lot of things can change, but the book you cannot change. So
there, I have it with me right now, even though you're saying that it was made like such a long time back.
So you can't, the size will stay that way, the images will stay that way, the sequence will stay that way. So you have to be very certain when you make a book, because you cannot change after that. After that, the work exists in one aspect as a book,
But just to before we wrap up, one last. Do you think that you know how like when you're making that one image, there is an entire process that that has a role to play in who you become or the clarity you have about what you're going to photograph or create, even if you're not a photographer or any. I mean, in some ways, do you think that process of saying, okay, now I have these images, and maybe I have an idea of a much better, more concretized idea of how I feel about them. And I decide, okay, I'm going to make this book now, which is going to be this final image. But that process of also going from the images to the book is also like a process of personal growth. I mean, for me, I feel like that also it's a similar process, like how you make a photograph. When you make a book, you also kind of question, investigate, look around yourself, and create, to a certain degree. I mean, again, there are different formats that one can play with, but I don't know. I just feel like that also allows you going on this journey as long as you're open to be as experimental as one would be in their image making. I mean, I don't know if.
I mean, yes. So the reason why books are very final is because we publish them.
Right.
If you don't publish them, they are not final. You can change
Print
however
one copy
times.
and put it on under your bed and like
So
do that for a while.
So the reason why we make books is actually because we want other people to have them. It's an object that can be given to another human being here, and everybody has the same, right? It is something that is you do it because you want people to have it, and it feels good if people like it. So I agree with you that if you are making work without any final form in mind, can be just as chaotic as it can. Okay, making a work without any final form in mind can be very chaotic because there is no limit for you to work. You are lost at sea, but if you have yes, so if you have a limit for you to work, let's say an exhibition space with this number of walls, or a book that is this size, this number of pages, then you have some boundaries for your mind to think. But what I'm trying to say is just that, just be aware that this limit is both good and bad. If you start with a very tight space, you can't, the work cannot grow. So it's something that you have to manage yourself. You have to have some way, everybody has some way of balancing this. Sometimes when you are making a work that that goes on for very long, you have the luxury of not thinking about it for a long time. Yeah.
That's true. Would you, I agree that what you're saying, that book is a very final form, but do you think that, I don't know, maybe at some point in the future you might rework on Shauna in some ways or remake? I mean, I guess in some ways, Shauna, a chapter in your life that you said your goodbye to.
Yeah.
But would you have otherwise thought of doing another version of Shauna? Like,
the best thing to do is to not touch it ever again.
Okay.
Yeah. That is the coolest thing that you can do. I think I can do.
Done, Mr. Cooper. But thanks so much. Thank you for being so honest and having another one of these conversations.
Thanks. Thank you for having me.
No man, this was fun, and thank you everyone else who joined us. We're going to have the third session for this week on Sunday, where we'll actually have two women, Sadia Mariam and Yu Min. Sadia is from Bangladesh and is part of a collective called Kali Collective, and Yu is part of a collective of photographers called Thuma. She's from Burma, and we'll be in conversation with them about collaborating on a book project, which is 12 photographers, 6 from Bangladesh and 6 from Burma, and this project that they've come up with. And we hope to see you then. Thank you, and have a nice evening, guys. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.